everybody. My name is Jacob Lemonds, and welcome to another episode of LemonTalks. Now, I know it's been a while since I've dropped an episode, and there are a couple of explanations for that. It's simply because outside of doing this, obviously I have a job, but I also volunteer my time to a local theater, and this last weekend we had a show that we were putting on there, and so I was up there frequently helping them out with that. As well as that, I've also started working on writing a play script recently, and so that is also taking up quite a bit of my time creatively. But I will get back to releasing content fairly regularly and try to do my best at letting you know when episodes are going to come. This is sort of a special case to that because I definitely wanted to let you know that an episode was going to come out today. I just wasn't sure if I wanted to tell you the content of the episode, and that's because we're taking a step back from what we would normally do, which is an informational episode on a subject that tends to be pretty generic, can often be categorized, but it's to take an episode to let you all know a little bit about me personally, just on a personal level. So that way I can get nice and human with you and let you know a little bit about the person that you see on the screen, you know, kind of humanize me, if you will. And so I am going to give you a roadmap. I know it probably seems a bit more formal to do it that way, and content like this tends to be a bit informal whenever it's produced, but I always feel that structure can give things stability and also help maintain an understanding and an expectation of what's to come. And so the three things that we're going to be going over today to help you get to know me a little bit better are first, some of my favorite things, just some of my favorite things that I tend to gear watching and give my time to and my appreciation to. And then two, a memory that made me personally. It's a memory that is very prominent in my mind. It won't be very dark in tone, I can promise you that right now, but it is definitely something that when I think about it, it's something that happened to me as a little kid, and it opened up my mind. It gave me a broader view on how things can be done, both artistically and professionally. Now, the last one is just going to be some hypotheticals. Now, the hypotheticals that I speak of aren't necessarily like, would you if you could, or if you were in this situation, are you going to do that, like a regular hypothetical would be, but it's more or less going to be hypothetically, these are the situations that I like to witness and bear witness to in life. And so we'll just go over, I guess, some key adjectives that will really help you key in on what those moments are for me that I feel like make life worth living. All right. So moving straight on into my favorites, we're going to go over some of my favorite sports teams. Obviously, I love the Raiders. Yeah, I wanted to let that one sink in and see how many people actually took that seriously. No, very obviously, from the covering in the background, I am a Kansas City Chiefs fan. I have been that way for my entire life. It's because my father is a Kansas City Chiefs fan to this day, and whenever I was watching football on Sundays, that's who I was watching because that's who my father was watching. On the other side of that coin now, though, during my pre-adolescent years, I had actually kind of adopted an admiration for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so those two teams in the NFL are the teams that I tend to follow when we talk about like the way the organization is ran, how well the players are playing, and whether or not they have any success. Now, moving on over to the NBA, and I know that this is going to sting for some people, but I am a LeBron James fan. I've never been a fan of any one singular team in the NBA. When I started watching professional basketball, I was actually sitting at my friend Pedro Rivera's house. We started watching a game between the Cleveland Cavaliers and I think it was the Phoenix Suns or something like that. It's the Phoenix Suns or the New York Knicks. a team like that. I knew they were orange. They had orange. But either way, I saw LeBron James playing, and he was still with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I could even tell then as a kid, like, this is an all-star player. Like, this is a player that when I think about playing basketball and like amazing basketball play, he embodies that. He is that. And so I started watching him, and then he announced that he was leaving the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I thought to myself, well, I still really like that player. And I don't really like anybody else on the Cleveland Cavaliers as much as I like that guy. So I'll go ahead and start watching the Miami Heat. And from then on, that's basically the trend that I took toward the NBA, is that LeBron, he started playing for the Heat, so I started watching the Heat. He went back to Cleveland, so I started watching Cleveland again, and now he's with the Lakers. He'll probably end his career with the Lakers unless he signs like a one-day contract with the Cleveland Cavaliers, but now I watch the Lakers because that is where he is. And in terms of hockey, I know I am a Pittsburgh Penguins fan. And we had a couple good years there, like nearly a decade ago, but I'll tell you what, it's been a roller coaster if you're a Penguins fan. I stay behind my team, dude, whether or not we're making the Stanley Cup every year, and yeah, it's all good times. And in terms of baseball, I am a Kansas City Royals fan. No matter how deep no matter how deep they go into the playoffs, I am Kansas born and raised, Hutchinson born and raised, and we'll get to that in a second. But so I tend to root for the Kansas City Royals. Now, in all of my videos, you tend to see me wear this garb often. There's a very simple explanation for that. It's because these symbols are something that I hold very near and dear to my heart. They actually represent the high school that I attended here in Hutchinson, Kansas. These represent the Salt Hawk. See, our town is famous for its salt mines, and so that is where the term comes from, being a Salt Hawk. It is something that I feel like makes us unique. I mean, you could travel the country, you're not going to find any Salt Hawks anywhere except for here in Hutchinson, Kansas. And honestly, as for most people, like, there were some very good memories in high school, very good times. But seeing as how I live in my hometown still, I love to support them in everything that they do. You got to pass the torch on, and the current generation up at Hutchinson High School, I feel like they're doing big things. I feel like they're doing very well for themselves, and I make it known whenever I can that that's how I feel about that generation. Now, moving on to a broader spectrum of things, I am patriotic. I love our country, good old USA. Do I think that there are some things that we could be doing better? Absolutely. But every country has room for improvement. I dare you to show me the one country that is perfection in everything that it does. You are going to find something wrong with it, I guarantee you. And so, although the USA might have some flaws, I don't think that that's any reason not to love it. And so whenever the Olympics come on or the World Championships come on, you can bet that I am supporting my fellow Americans in their cause and in their journey to win whatever championship or whatever gold they're trying to capture. Now, the next thing that really makes me me is I am a huge professional wrestling fan. That could have been very clear in the last video that I made, but I feel like it's important to go over some wrestlers in particular that made me so akin to it. Shawn Michaels is my favorite professional wrestler of all time. Of all time, it's got to be Shawn Michaels because he's a phenomenal performer. He was raised in Texas. He comes from a background that made him rough and tough, man, and I can respect that. He's had a very long and arduous journey. He's had a lot of ups and downs, and it's been tumultuous, to say the least, both inside and out of the ring, whether it's from injuries that he had in the ring or even some personal issues that he had outside of it. I've watched multiple documentaries on this guy, and so I can really feel for him. And it humanizes all of the wrestlers if you just watch their documentary and watch their real life story. Helps you understand how they got where they are and why they love the business, and also who they are outside of it. Now, when we're talking about luchadors, I got to talk about luchadors because it's almost like a whole different sect of wrestling. Rey Mysterio Jr., he has paved the way for so many people. It's ridiculous. And at one point he was referred to, I think even to this day, there are times that he's referred to as the biggest little man. And it's because watching a guy that is my height, I'm 5'7", by the way, but watching a guy that is my height take on guys who are a whole foot and a half taller than him, but overcome them. Yeah, WWE is scripted. The script is fake, but the risks are real. Watching him put his life and body on the line in order to teach us that you can overcome any obstacle, no matter how large. That is something that I've always enjoyed watching Rey Mysterio do throughout his entire career. And the fact that he is a luchador, that he wears his mask, in particular, is a masked luchador, I feel like that's a broader lesson. It's a lesson that you could be anybody. This could be anybody. In fact, his most recent gear has featured question marks on it. And that's just because the mystery is who is he? Who is he? Most people know who he is. And most people have seen him without his mask at this point. But that's neither here nor there. The lesson of the mask is still there. It's that could just as easily be you. Think about it metaphorically. What are you trying to overcome in your life? What in your life can you be a Rey Mysterio for? And then we'll go ahead and go on to a memory that I feel like made me, and that actually relates to WWE. It is WWE. So like I said, we're going to stay away from the darker stuff and provide a memory that definitely comes to mind on explaining why I am the way that I am. Attending a live WWE event has to be an experience that is irreplaceable, especially in the era that I went. I actually went to Intrust Bank Arena there in Wichita and watched a live WWE event. That night in particular, they were showing ECW and SmackDown as their shows. The ECW lineup, it was fairly simple. At the time, they were running a lot of storylines that were basically the originals of ECW. The product of ECW had wrestlers before they got bought out by WWE. And so WWE had invited a lot of those wrestlers to take part in ECW after they had bought it for their version. And so you had them, and they called themselves the Originals, and they faced what they called the New Breed, which were wrestlers that WWE had hired to fill out the rest of the roster of ECW that they felt like could make it more entertaining. And so that was the driving storyline of the show of ECW at that point, was the New Breed versus the Originals. And then, of course, Bobby Lashley and Umaga had a very prominent rivalry at the time. But moving on to SmackDown, because SmackDown is actually going to provide us with one of the experiences that shook me to my core and actually educated me a little bit. I remember seeing Matt Hardy against MVP that night. I remember seeing Rey Mysterio getting revenge on Chavo Guerrero for injuring his knee however many months before. I remember seeing Batista face off against King, Booker, and Finlay with Undertaker in a tag team match. And I bring up The Undertaker because that is the experience that I'm talking about. I'm sure that anybody else out there who is a professional wrestling fan knows where I'm going with this, but there will never be something that replicates hearing the bell toll. It's like church bells. You hear the bell toll in the stadium, and then everything goes pitch black. When everything went pitch black, you got to remember that I was like 7, 8 years old at the time. When everything went pitch black, I grabbed my dad. And I held on for dear life because that scared the crap out of me. We are in a stadium with thousands of people, and everything just went pitch dark, and I'm a little tiny child, around some adults that have been drinking. Like, my fear is getting trampled, like stomped all over. But little did I know that this is definitely a part of the show. It was The Undertaker's entrance. See, now the only light that illuminated the stadium after that were flames and lightning on the Titantron coming from the stage. It kind of showed you this is where your attention needs to be directed now. And then The Undertaker started making his slow, methodical walk to the ring that he did for years, decades. And that right there is something that taught me, something that was taught to me that can hardly be taught any other way. And it was the ambiance of it. It was the aura of it. The way that they created that with all the different effects they had going in that show tonight, it became inspiration for what I would do in shows going on later in my life when I would be involved with theater and such. How do I create some of the emotions that I'm trying to get in my show? The Undertaker showed me a bit of that. Basically opened the doorway. If you want people to be frozen with fear, then you have to give them something to fear, or at least something that stuns them in awe. And blacking out all of the lights, because there were hundreds of lights in the stadium that were on before that moment, but blacking out everything to a point that you can't see your hand in front of your face, that will startle you. I can guarantee you. But that is definitely a memory that made me who I am. It is something that made me appreciate the theatricality and the showmanship of professional wrestling and even other theatrical works and movies, TV shows, all that sort of stuff. There is a fair amount of effort that goes into that sort of thing, which is why you see some people try to mimic it and then fail epically. Now, these are my favorite things in life to bear witness to. Honestly, whenever we're getting to know each other in life, I wish that we talked about this a little bit more, because it gives you a peek into what their personality is like. So I'm going to go over a few of those things with you right now, and you'll understand what I mean as I explain them. So the first thing that I like to bear witness to in life is true love. Now, I know I say that, and then some of you are like, oh, that's corny. That's cheesy, man. Why would you even say that? It's because it's true, man. I mean, especially, I just feel like having true love is really one of the most selfless loves that you can have on this earth. Seeing two people who would literally give their lives for each other without making each other's lives a living hell. That's an important part of it right there, without causing each other distress, but always being there for each other, having that eternal support system for a majority of your lifespan. To be honest, nowadays it's rare. It's rare to see that nowadays, and sometimes when you see it, it's a facade. If I'm going to be quite honest with you, it's something of a show that people try to put on when they're out in public, and then behind closed doors, they don't really have it. But to witness two people actually having that, it gives you hope now at this point in time in society. And so when I see it, I see something to love. I see something to hope for. I see something that ultimately I hope that I end up having in my life someday. But I know that the odds of that are very slim at this point because of some of the worldviews that a lot of people have started to have out there, whether it's through their own crisis of faith or stuff that they've been through traumatizing them. It's just made it very difficult to experience that with another person nowadays, because some of us are just so damaged we won't allow ourselves to experience that with someone else, or won't allow the person that we love to experience that. Now, moving on to serenity and peace. Now, serenity is something that, and I know that this isn't the dictionary definition, and really if you look up these two words, they're going to be like synonyms of each other. But serenity, I really feel like, is describing one person's calm and tranquil state of mind, while peace is what I would like to use to describe like something that affects an entire tribe or community of people. It'll affect multiple people is what I'm trying to say. I think it should be fairly obvious why I enjoy witnessing this. People tend to be happier, not to mention live longer whenever they have serenity, and especially whenever their loved ones have peace. They laugh and they smile more, they worry less, there is always little to no tension amongst individuals that have a disagreement whenever they have serenity or peace. Whenever you have a disagreement with somebody, but you found your peace, you have your serenity, it's not going to dig at you nearly as hard. You're not going to feel like you have something to prove over them, and it's just not going to bother you. This is something that I like to bear witness to in my lifetime, because I feel like it's like the zenith. It's the highest point. It's the pinnacle of attaining happiness. Without serenity and peace, I feel like it's almost impossible to have true happiness unless you're one of the few that finds happiness in the chaos, and I hate to break it to you, but even for those of you out there who think that you're really badass, that's not you, dude. Like, people can tend to see that you're miserable, especially when you open yourself up to them and are honest with them about the way you feel with that. But when I say that those people that enjoy chaos are a rare breed, it's not a compliment. Honestly, and it's my personal opinion, but I hope that they stay a rare breed, because in order to have true peace and serenity, you have to have a majority of people who are willing to work on that with you. And believe me, once you have it, it's unlike anything else. It's literally how we describe heaven oftentimes, is by having that serene and tranquil life after everything that we've suffered through is over. Now moving on to triumph and redemption. These are two things that I feel like a lot of people like to see in their lives. Again, because it gives them faith, it gives them hope, it gives them strength to what they're trying to overcome in their life. So overcoming one's obstacles in order to achieve an end or a victory. Sometimes people who get redemption aren't always victorious, but they definitely saw it through to an end. Some people who triumph are definitely attaining victory. Now, I feel like the key difference between triumph and victory is that triumph, I feel like, can happen at any point of elevation in your life. Like, you can achieve triumph at a high point in your life. You can achieve triumph at a low point in your life. You're even somewhere here in the middle. Like, you can always triumph over something, feel like you accomplished something, and that you beat all of the obstacles and problems that were in your way trying to keep you from obtaining your goal. You can triumph at any point in your life. Redemption, I feel like, comes more from the lower points of your life, if not the lowest point of your life. Redemption almost being the definition of you coming from that low point and bringing yourself to a higher point, or the highest point that you've been, so that people can look at you and say, you've come so far. I'm proud of you. You know, it's something that everybody likes to see, especially in their loved ones that they feel like are struggling to get through something that has maybe traumatized them or has definitely left them worse for wear. We love seeing people triumph and redeem themselves in life, especially when it comes to someone that we felt like could never do any good in their lives, and all of a sudden they are one of the best people that we know. That is certainly one of the forms of redemption that I love seeing the most. I don't feel like it takes anything away from you that you were a bad person at one point in your life, making bad decisions, however you want to phrase it. But the fact that you made a change for the better, that should always be highlighted, in my opinion. So this was an episode where I got a little bit more personal with you all. Honestly, I feel like it's important that I open myself up to you, so that way I can humanize myself here on the screen to you. For any of you watching that thinks that I'm just a robot that reads off of this screen, I do have notes on my computer, but at the end of the day, I am just like you. I am a human being. I am a person. I have feelings too, and that's okay. But the main reason that I decided to have an episode like this today in particular is that I wanted to give you a look into my nature as a person moving forward, so that way you can understand my opinions about some things and why I feel the way that I do about them. I love giving information But I feel like too often in this world, it seems that we forget about each other's humanity a little too easily. We forget that we're talking about a person that experiences emotions, experiences hate and anger the same way that we do. So I feel like it should very simply be boiled down to treating others the way that you want to be treated, or better. Never treat them worse than what you would treat yourself. We've gotten very comfortable in showing and giving people the worst of ourselves. And in an ideal world, we won't ever do that to each other. We will never show the worst parts of ourselves to another person just because we want to hurt them or make them feel as bad as we do. And so I love you all, and I appreciate you for listening. I appreciate you for watching, especially if you made it to this point, the very end of the video, and listened to all of what I had to say today. I appreciate you, and I hope that you have a great day.